This is Mike Maloney, and Mike is my gold expert. And the reason gold is so important, gold and silver, is because gold and silver is God's money. It's money made by God. And then in 1971, the U.S. government, under President Nixon, took God's money and turned it into man-made money. Never in the history of the world, this is the thing, never in the history of the world has this ever happened. In 1971, the U.S. and Nixon convinced the entire world to replace gold and silver with paper money. This stuff. Cash is trash. So the reason we have so much volatility in the world today is historically, since the time of the Romans and the Greeks and the French and the English and the Germans, every time they have taken God's money, like silver here, and replaced it with man-made money, there's been economic volatility. Now the problem is, so the dollar is going to keep dropping. So one of the reasons I can predict what's going to happen is I can predict the dollar will keep dropping simply because the U.S. government and now the euro, the European central banks, are printing so much of this trash. So you'll see gold going up in price, oil going up in price, real estate going up in price, because this is trash. So that's what happened in 1971, has happened throughout history. And the reason this current election doesn't make any difference is the only person they can put this back in place is a strong, charismatic leader. People like Julius Caesar, Napoleon. That's why they were such great leaders, was they actually replaced this with this. Unfortunately, we do not have that person among the candidates. I know Ron Paul, philosophically, I agree with him as closely as possible, but unfortunately I don't think Ron Paul has the chutzpah, as my Jewish friends would say, to change this whole thing. So there will be more this printed than ever before, which means the dollar keeps coming down and other things keep going up. And that's really what's going to happen. It's predictable. And eventually this will go to its true worth, zero. So all of you savers out there and people trying to save this trash, you're going to lose big time. With that, Mike Maloney.
Currencies have been backed by oil, by gold and silver, by land. As soon as you remove something that you can't, something that puts financial constraint on them, where you can't just print as much of it as you want, the currency is pretty much doomed. It went to zero in a hyperinflation. Most people don't know that the U.S. has already been through a hyperinflation. And we went through a huge inflation where the dollar lost 66% of its purchasing power during the Civil War. So this has all happened before, and we're coming up on a convergence of a whole bunch of cycles. There's something called the Kondratiev wave that's this long, it's about the length of a human lifetime. And the last time the Kondratiev wave went into what's called a Kondratiev winter, that was the Great Depression. We're about, we've actually started the Kondratiev winter back in about 2000.
Yeah, let me back up what he's saying. Historically, throughout time, every 75 years there's a depression. The last depression was 1930. So we're right on it right now.
Yeah.
Now, again, the rich will get richer and the poor and middle class will get wiped out, unfortunately.
And with that, there's another cycle that I call the currency cycle, and it's this pendulum that swings back and forth from quality money to quantity currency and back to quality money. And it's gone on through the centuries since 407 AD when the first hyperinflation happened in Athens. And I believe that we're on the precipice of this again. If the US dollar has to go back to gold backed, you're looking somewhere well north of $6,000 an ounce for gold. Somewhere, and it all depends. You have no idea how much currency they're going to print between now and then.
How much is gold today?
And gold today is $850, $865, something like that. And it just broke its 1980 record high and closed above $850. This is for the first time ever in history. That puts us in the second phase of this bull market. The first phase of any bull market is sort of a stealth phase where it's quiet accumulation. Then the second phase is usually the longest duration and the greatest growth. And then the final third phase is the blow-off top where the market just goes vertical. You remember the NASDAQ in the last 3 months of 1999. It just went vertical, and the public, everybody rushed into it. And they all got slaughtered. The herd always comes rushing in at the end, and they always get slaughtered. And that's the time you want to sell. You don't want to hold on to gold and silver forever. You want to hold on to it until a median-priced single-family home costs less than 40 ounces of gold or less than 500 ounces of silver, and then you want to trade your gold and silver for real estate, cash flow real estate. Like I said, everything is waves and cycles, and the great news is that the greatest wealth is created in the shortest period of time when we're going back through these crises. There was more wealth actually created for the rich, not for the average investor, but for the rich, like Joe Kennedy and Jesse Livermore, these stock market investors. They created more wealth for themselves from 1929 to 1932 than they did all throughout the 20s. You know, World War I and all the roaring 20s, the big stock market boom. They like doubled, tripled, quadrupled their wealth from 1929 to 1922 when the markets were crashing. The same thing happened from 1971 to 80 when the market was going sideways. As a stock market investor, you weren't getting anywhere. There were a couple of real estate booms, but if you take the expansion of the money supply, real estate just kept up with the expansion of the money supply. So inflation really, your real estate in the 80s, 70s, I mean, was keeping up with inflation. But gold went up 24 times its price in 9 years, and silver went up 39 times its price. If you had just 10% of your net worth, your entire net worth in gold, and you lost the other 90%, by 1980 you were 2.4 times richer than you were in 1971 with just 10%. So it's huge wealth that's created in a very short period of time. So for 2008, you know, Robert called me a couple of weeks ago. He asked me where did I see gold going. I said down, and it went way up instead. And the reason I said down was because the European Central Bank had just created 350 billion euros. That's $500 billion worth of euros. They had already inflated their currency supply 12% from January to September. On December 18th, they added another 4% to their currency supply in one day. So the world is awash in paper money. It's a blizzard of paper money. And what's really interesting, if you study history, there comes a time where the public, the mass psyche of the country and the world, this time the world, before it's always been a country, but the mass psyche starts to sense the currency debasement. Everybody should be able to feel it now. You go to the grocery store, you go to the gas station, you can feel that there's a currency debasement going on. Everything's costing more. Your currency is losing purchasing power. And as the public starts to wake up, gold and silver go through the roof, and all that paper that they've created, gold and silver do an accounting periodically throughout history. It's really exciting to see this. They automatically revalue themselves when the public wakes up, and they catch up to all the currency that's been produced. And there's this same tiny little pile of 2 billion ounces of gold that there was back in 1980. And the pile of silver has gone from 2.2 billion ounces to 300 million. Today, there's 8.3 times more gold available for investors to buy than there is silver.
I want you guys to hear what, I don't think we heard what he just said, okay? To me, I've been saying this for a number of years now. Silver is the biggest opportunity I have ever seen, bigger than real estate, bigger than anything else. And silver, as we're talking today, 2008, is about $15 an ounce. Mm-hmm. There's less than 10-year supply worth of silver on planet Earth. The difference between gold and silver is gold is hoarded, silver is consumed. Silver is an industrial precious metal. It is used in cell phones, telephones, computers, electric lights, everywhere. The more information age we become, the more we use silver. And what Michael is saying is that stockpile is at all-time lows, and they're not discovering much more. Poland has about 25% of the world's silver, so you know, you can buy real estate silver in Poland. You know, but anyway, so when people say,
Mexico too.
Yeah, where am I investing? I say I'm investing in the world. I say, what do you mean by that? It says I'm investing in a metal that is consumed throughout the world. So I haven't, and I buy a little gold, but I've been buying silver. Kim and I've been buying silver since it was about $4 an ounce, and we stockpile it. We buy ETFs. We buy anything we can in that stuff, and then you know it was what, $7. Then all of a sudden now it's 15. and we're just watching it. It is not crystal ball. It is not about, the stuff on television. It is pure supply, demand, economics, fundamentals. As I said, there's 2 billion people wanting the Western lifestyle. 2 billion people wanting cell phones, computers, electricity, lights, all of this stuff. So I look at it as $15 an ounce. I think I'll wait. Well, I remember when it was $3 and $3.50, then $3.70, then $4, and then I said,
yep.
The bottom had been hit. The thing is trending up, and it just keeps going. Right?
I bought at $4, and I got into the business of selling gold and silver just because I knew that the cycle had changed.
I just want to say too. I think it was interesting. We were in Poland. And Robert's saying, people are saying, well, we're in Poland now, and real estate is really high, and Robert's been talking about silver, and Poland silver supply is like 20 to 25% of the world's silver is in Poland, and they're like, yeah, but what should we invest in? They're like, silver. Yeah, but what? I don't. How? What? Silver? It's like it's right in front of them. A lot of times it's just right in front of them, but they just couldn't see it.
That's one of the things, too. You can buy it and you can take it home. It can't go bankrupt on you. You can't have a labor dispute or Enron accounting. It's just this super simple thing. You buy it now. You sit on it for 5 years. I don't know how long it's going to take, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. We could be going into a currency crisis right now. There was a trend line for gold where it was going up very smoothly and the price hit this trend line. It changed a little bit in 2005. I was hoping that we would drop back to the 750 area or so by February and touch this trend line. If we don't, we've established a new trend line that's extremely steep, which would give us maybe $1,500 to $2,500 gold by the end of this year. And that says that we're beginning a currency crisis. Precious metals are the only investment class where their bull market can go from stage 1 to stage 3, and it's called a currency crisis. And it used to be that you had to mint coinage to expand the currency supply. Then you had to print paper to expand the currency supply. But now all you do is you add zeros to it. And boom, it's 10 times.
They don't even have to print this trash anymore.
Right.
It's electronic. That is how fast it's going to hit people. If you can understand that, that's why it's information age, not industrial age. And so all those, I feel for them, hoping the government's going to pay, like who's going to win? Is it Hillary? Is it Obama? Is it Mitt Romney? I mean, they can't do a thing about this. It's too late. It doesn't matter. What matters is how smart you are now. If you think these guys are going to save your family, I think you're in for a sad, rude awakening. Because we've been here before. 1933, a man named Adolf Hitler was elected to Chancellor of Germany. The reason was because the Reichsmark, the Weimar government had printed too many of these Reichsmarks. Today, George Bush and Bernanke and those guys, they don't even have to print the stuff. And it's a global problem, not a German problem. And it has happened throughout history.
Yeah. In 1919, at the end of World War I, the German mark, the price of gold in Germany was 110 marks an ounce. By November 23rd of 1923, it was hundreds of trillions, and a single silver dollar was $1.6 trillion. And trillion marks, yes. And when gold was just going vertical in the midst of their hyperinflation, where people's...
What year was this again?
This was 23. It was November of 23 when they finally went into the death throes of the
This is
mark.
the German economy.
Yeah. The final week of that hyperinflation, and this is when fear is gripping the nation. The middle class has been wiped out. The value of the currency is changing on a daily basis. Things are 2, 3, 4 times more expensive tomorrow than they were today. It's said that you could drink a bottle of wine at dinner, and the following day the empty bottle, the deposit for it, was worth more than the bottle of wine. There were accounts in 1919 you could retire on 50,000 marks. By 1923, they closed the accounts and didn't even bother sending you the money back because a postage stamp was more than 50. It was several hundred 1,000 barns. In the final week of November of 1919, when they were in the midst of this currency crisis, that's when Hitler gave his beer hall putsch, that's where he made his name. That's where the public first recognized him. And it wouldn't have been possible for him to come to power if they didn't have that fear to play on.
Throughout history, the only thing that brings stability back into the currency is a strong, charismatic leader. I'm afraid Ron Paul is not our boy. He ain't going to do it.
Right.
I don't think Hillary can do it.
It's a shame,
I don't think Obama can do it. I don't think Romney can do it, because this is beyond the borders of this country. And the middle class will probably be wiped out in America.
So here's what I'm betting on for 2008. Whoever becomes president is going to continue the deficit spending. They're going to continue. This whole generation right now are like a whole bunch of children. They just want it right now, and they spend and charge up the credit cards. When you buy a home or sign a credit card name, you're expanding the currency supply of the United States. The bank didn't loan you any dollars. Those dollars are just a book entry that they add. It's part of fractional reserve banking. When somebody gets foreclosed on, when they file bankruptcy, those dollars that were created magically go poof back into money heaven, and the currency supply contracts. I think somewhere on this big inflation, we're going to have one deflation that it'll wipe out people that are too highly leveraged, that don't have any gold or silver.
Or cash flow.
Yeah, so I think during this cycle, the savers are going to be wiped out, the spenders are going to be wiped out. It's the people that have balanced arcs. If you read Rich Dad's Prophecy, and Robert talks about building an ark in there, you've got to have a balanced ark. He talks about having cargo in your hold that's balanced. And if you've got something that's going to perform well, I don't think we're going to have a deflation for very long. It would be very short-lived. Ben Bernanke would just hit the accelerator on the printing press, floor it, and try and get us.
And the European central banks already prove they're going to flood the market with this.
Those are fake $1 million bills, and they're going to be reality.
Well, aren't you here? They've already proved, they've already shown their hand. They've already played their hand.
Yeah.
They're not even going to print this. It's just going to flood with this. So you're going to see this crash and then inflation like we've never seen before. So it really works for us is because we just keep collecting that rent, but then we can pay off those deadbeat loans of ours with cheap money. That is the strategy.
In 1980, took 1,000 ounces of gold to buy a silver to buy a single-family median-price home in the United States, and silver was not rare then. When you measure things with gold and silver, there is no inflation. Everything just travels inside of a valuation channel, going from overvalued to undervalued to overvalued to undervalued. That day will come again, but it's probably going to be less than 500 ounces. You want to buy a single-family median-price home outright, no payments, no down payment, 100% cash flow, put $8,000 aside today. You're going to be able to do it in the future.
Silver.
It's just history repeating.
In silver.
Silver, I'm sorry.
Don't hold cash.
Right.
Cash
gold is good too, but it won't perform as well.
Is trash.
Exactly.
Repeat after me.
Cash is trash.
If you can understand that one, your whole paradigm will shift. So what's the good news?
The good news is I believe you're going to be able to buy a home for $8,000 if you set that money aside in real money, not currency. And people need to learn the difference. When the public can discern the difference between currency and money, that's when this is over with.
This is God's made money. And this is man-made money.
Currency.
So are you optimistic about 08?
Absolutely. Yep. Not for the middle class or the general economy. The people that lack financial education, that aren't building their arcs, they're in some serious trouble.
Serious trouble. And change your thinking. This is trash. This doesn't even exist. That's why we have the subprime mess. It's not those guys with the subprime loans. It started back in 1971, and it's been repeated throughout history. The smart money today is in apartment houses and mobile home parks. So that means we're geniuses. So in closing, I'll just tell you what I do. I don't recommend, don't do this at home. When I say cash is trash, Kim, do we have any cash?
We almost never have cash.
We're always broke.
It's always moving. It's always invested. So when a deal comes up, we scramble like crazy to go find the funding for it.
And the reason for that is as soon as this stuff hits my hand, I'm either putting it into some doodad, like my new Lamborghini, or I'm putting it into something that has the possibility of surviving a currency crash. So Kim and I never have any cash. We're always moving the stuff out of our hands. We are technically broke, but we're not in debt. There is a very big difference. We have hundreds of acres of land right along the path of growth. We have apartment houses. We have gold, silver, oil, stocks. But it goes back to when I saw silver at around $3.75 an ounce, and it ticked up, ticked up, ticked up. I said, okay, it's going to go back up. And back then, Kim and I had no money. All of our trash went into silver and gold and all that. So that is our play. But we buy things of value. So the thing we're moving our stock money into is bulk shipping companies. You know, people that are shipping the grain because the dollar has dropped, shipping grain to Pakistan and India and all that stuff. We're killing it. We're making so much money in that stuff, just like an apartment house. Not sexy, not fun, not exciting, but very fundamental. So I am extremely excited about the future. The franchising thing is chugging along. Everything is going great. Cash is coming in, and we take this cash and get rid of it as soon as we can. I don't recommend it, but that's what we do. Thank you very much. Have a great 2008.